we have 10 steps that you will complete, and we'll go through those. We have them written down. The high level answer is that you qualify the property based on your assumptions that you've made in underwriting, and you see if anything is different from the assumptions that you made. I think I just bit my tongue. And see if anything is different from the assumptions that you made. Ultimately, it is a fact-finding period, and if you find facts that don't align with what you assumed going into it, then you renegotiate or back out or move forward, and knowing that you've got a different set of assumptions or facts that you're dealing with. So if I can see this, please. We wrote down top 10, or not top 10, but 10 things that you need to complete from a report standpoint for the due diligence process. And keep in mind, this is for apartment communities. If we're talking single family homes, then it won't be as robust of a process. So we're talking specifically apartment communities. If it's hotels, if it's industrial, I don't know. I never closed on any of that stuff. So find someone who has. But if you're asking about apartment communities, which it was not, it wasn't mentioned exactly what you're referring to, but I'm going to assume you're talking about apartment communities. So number one is a financial audit. Really important. One of the lessons I learned on my first property is the importance of identifying occupancy versus economic occupancy. And the financial audit will determine that. And how you will do that is ideally you hire a third-party company to do that for you, and they will look at the bank statements and juxtapose them with the financial statements that were provided, and also with the rent roll to make sure they all line up. And perhaps juxtapose is the right word, maybe cross-reference is the better word. So you want to do the financial audit. That's number one, to determine if there are any discrepancies in the financial statements that are being reported and what's actually being generated by the property. Huge thing that you need to take into account. Number two is a internal property condition assessment. Basically, you want to take a look at the property and assess all the areas that need to be fixed and areas that need some fixing perhaps in the near future, and then what is operating properly. We hire a third-party company to do that for us as well. Number three is a market survey and condition report. The main purpose of this is to make sure that the rental assumptions that you have are accurate and that your assumptions are conservative and they're hopefully not the market leader for what you anticipate your rent to be. And that market survey is typically done by your property management company. We meaning Theo, myself, Frank, my business partner, and within the Ashcroft team, we always do this market survey ourselves prior to getting it under contract. We call up the comps. In addition, when we visit the property before we have it under contract, we go visit the comps. But in addition to us doing it, we have our property management partner do it as well to make sure there's nothing that we're missing or that they're missing. File and lease audit. You'll need a company to do the audit of the rent or the leases and the lease contracts and make sure that they are accurate and reflective of what they're actually paying in rent, and there's nothing out of the ordinary. And I know from your closing, you came across something like this. Remember what happened again?
Yeah, I should have done the lease audit on my property. Just the rents that we were verbally told were not the same as the rents that were on the leases.
They were higher,
were
weren't
not
they?
the same as the rent that we actually were receiving. So we were told one thing that was, you know, a middle number. The leases were the lowest number, and what we actually got was the highest number.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Normally, it doesn't end up good when you don't do the lease audit. In your case, it ended up as a favorable outcome. 5 is a unit walkthrough. Surprisingly, I get a question every now and then of, do we need to walk through every one of the units? Yes, we do. We have to walk through every one of the units. The ones that we're not getting access to, those are the ones we should be most suspicious of. Mm-hmm. The dog, they can't get a hold of the resident because there's a dog and they can't pin the dog up. The resident works third shift. The resident is out of town and the locks don't work. All these excuses you're going to hear, and all these excuses you're going to have to push aside and say, I know, but in order to close, I still need to see the inside of the unit because we've got to do our inspection of the interior.
It's another quick example of that, because I was going to talk about this thing in my updates, but I might as well do it now because it's relevant to this. This happened to me for my properties too, because there's 12 units, and we got into every single unit during the inspection and the appraisal period, except for one unit. And I'm just like, oh, I mean, whatever. Like all the other units, they're fine, and you know, there can't be anything that's too wrong that'll cost too much money. And so I didn't see it. And then luckily, again, I got lucky, but you know how like the water bills are staggered quarterly, mm-hmm. And so we bought the property in July. We got our first water bill at the end of August. And I'm looking at it, they come in, and like the first one is, you know, what I expected to be, and the second one's what I expected to be, and the third property, it's like 3 times as high as all the other properties for the month. I was like, what is going on? So I go over there with a plumber, because we assume there's a leak somewhere for the water bill. And we go in the basement, we can hear water running through the main, you know, sewage line. And we go to the unit above it, and there's no leak in there. And then we go to the unit above it, and it clicks. And it's like, oh my god, I've never seen this unit before. And we go in there, and literally his faucet is just running like full go. Like it's not like full go. Like I turn it off and on, it didn't change at all. And he said it's been like that since he moved in, and I had no idea. And I just text him. I go, hey, do you mind if we get into your unit? Do you think there's a leak in there? And he's like, it's been leaking since I got here. I've been telling you people to fix this leak. And I was like, oh, well, thanks for telling me now. So we got in there, we had to replace the entire vanity, and now I'm looking forward to, you know, I mean, based off of how much money we're losing from water, it'll pay the repairs, and the vanity will pay for itself. And I'm like,
it was just going full on.
Full go.
Oh
water.
Man! For how long? How long did you live there?
I think he had been there for a couple of months. I was like talking to him, and I was like, did you ever bring this up to the last owners? Like, yeah, I told them one time, but then when they didn't reply, I just figured they'd figure it out when they saw the water bill. Like, well, I did. So,
gosh. So
yeah, make sure you do walk through every single unit, because you don't want something like that happening to you, especially if you pay for utilities.
Number 6, yeah, if there was a RUB program, ratio utility bill back system, then that resident would have been hounding. He would have found you at where you live and be like, hey, listen, I need this fixed because I'm having to pay for it. Number 6, site survey. This just shows the boundary of your property, and it shows that, you know, where your property line is, etc. Number 7, property condition assessment. This is done by a third party that the lender selects. So the lender does their assessment. 8, environmental site assessment, making sure that there's not any environmental issues that are present. 9, appraisal. You know what the appraisal is. And number 10 is a green report, which evaluates the potential energy and water conservation measures on the property and estimates the initial investment and the cost savings to do so. So those are 10 things. I told you high level what you're looking for, and then got very granular in there, the 10 things for that.